the district has a little bit of an attitude about it. So I haven't really heard them come out and say like, hey, all students should have COVID shots. I don't know about, but don't you guys sort of feel the same, right? We have 25,000 students on campus. Can you imagine 25,000 people milling around in classrooms in the cafeteria? And then, everyone's going to be wearing a mask, but aren't you concerned? Like you're eating food, you're in the cafeteria. That would be, to me, a breeding ground for COVID if one person has it. So you have 25,000 people that don't have the shot, that would, have a huge impact on everybody. So anyway, okay, now I have the recorder on. So Brianna, what I did right now is I separated your tree layer. I put it on the top and I darkened it. And then I'm just going to come in here very lightly like that. No, I'm just kidding. Just imagine if there was a little bit more of light piercing through sort of here like that. Do you see what it does for the contrast immediately?
Yeah, I like that. That looks a lot better.
Yeah, it really pops this area. Then what I haven't done yet is I was just going to tap a little bit of fuzzy light coming this direction very lightly. I'm like at a 1%. Then real quick, I'm going to select parts of your house here. Let me see if I can just do this somewhat fast and efficiently. Now you could do a little bit more reflective and bounce light in terms of a rendering standpoint. But if I just here, if I take this and just lightly hit, hold on, let me subtract something from there. Let me subtract out that. Let me subtract out this. There we go. All right, now let me hit hide. Let's go back to that brush. I'm going to go to a 0.5, which is really light setting, and just see if I could pronounce a little bit more of the lights on there. Then I might come in and put a little bit of a yellow highlight on just the edge of the house and a couple little corners right there. Okay, so that's basically, then you could get maybe, hold on, let me do this real quick. Let me switch to this little highlight brush. This works quite well. And let me see, let me go to, I like that. Let me go a little bit more about there. Let me see what would happen. Let me put this on a layer. So if I come in here and get, hold on, there it is, deselect. To get a little bit of a highlight hitting there, up on this edge, a little bit coming across. And then a little bit like on the cat, like on the ear, right in here, a little bit wrapping around maybe the fur a little. See, and it just gets that area to pronounce out a little bit more.
Yeah, I
Okay.
like that.
So let's look at the difference if I were to take these layers here and look. Do you see how that, you use that term muddy? And so it's not that it was muddy, but what's happening is that some of the values are very similar. And so, and the highlights were blending in a little bit. So by darkening the trees a little bit more in the front, increasing a little bit of the highlights, it really does. And I made a mistake. I meant to do the highlights on a separate layer where I could adjust it. I might tone them down just a bit, but you see how it really makes the cat in the house pop now? It's
Yeah,
right
that looks
in
a lot
that
better.
focal area. Okay.
Thank you, Phil.
All right, my pleasure. Good work. It's a great piece. So I really like it quite a bit, and I love the other last thing you could do is maybe throw in some highlights coming along this area, sort of like on the water. Oops, right in here, you might have some really cool like little white to orange highlights blending across part of the water. And then when I was talking about reflective light, that light's going to hit here and bounce. So you might have some little highlights on parts of the wood. Over here, you might have some hitting along parts of like the shore a little bit, some in here, might be some little on little pieces on the grass in there that might blend in a little bit. You might have a little bit on part of that tree edge right there and in here. So everything to encapsulate that little area, and boom, it pops quite nicely.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's great. Thank you so much.
All right. Good work. It's fantastic. So yeah, excellent job. Okay. Um, and then side note, Josh, did you hear anything yet?
Yeah, I heard back a little bit of like more description of the job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could send that over to you if you'd like.
Cool. Or if
That's
you
okay
want
with
to
you?
talk later, yeah, if or later on today, I just wanted to double check with you. I didn't want to forget because I want to see if like are they going to give you a test or anything or have you do any sample work or no?
Yeah, I mean, I've been asking like questions. They've definitely been taking some time to respond. So it's just
Cool.
still going like back and forth. But
Okay, that's excellent. Good job. Okay, fantastic. All right, thanks, Brianna.
Thank you, Phil.
All right, my pleasure. That's awesome. I love that piece. That's where it came out. At first when you told me about putting the cat in there, I was a little like, but you really pull it off quite nicely. It's quite wonderful. You know.
Thank you so much.
All right, cool. Because I was worried the cat would be all like funky looking or something. You know what I mean? So, all right. Okay, let's jump over here. So Haley submitted this for last night's class because she had a little bit of a problem with her layers. So I told her to go ahead and submit it for today, and I would take a look at it. So Haley, how are you?
Yes, I'm doing okay.
So I think it's a great piece, especially since you started this from scratch. The tone's working really good. A couple of the comments that I would give is if you start to turn down your line weight, you should be able to really see the value start to change in here, you know?
Yeah, I already started to do that, and I'm like, oh, I should lower it more.
Yeah, lower it more definitely, because as you lower it more, you're going to see little areas where you're going to have these little pockets of gradations. Like for example, if you're looking at this light source and how this light source is going to be casting coming this way, you're going to have like up here, it'll be a little bit darker right there, and then it'll fade down and you'll have a nice little gradient, like a dark to light gradient, because this light is going to hit here and bounce back. It's going to go up the sides here. Then a little bit of that light will hit on the back side right here. But you'll have these really nice little pockets of gradations happening. So the line won't have to hold the piece together anymore. You can start eliminating some of the line, and then you could go in and render some of these little dark gradients. So remember, in gradations, we have two sets of gradations. We have dark to light gradations and light to dark. So light to dark is when the highlights are affecting an object. So in this case, it's more of a dark to light where we're losing light in certain areas. So you could come in here, and if you have, like I love this 175 brush right here, and if you have a darker value, you could really get in here and start to get some really nice, very soft like gradations and edge control going down on some of these shapes, especially where you have corners and things overlapping. And then if you turn off the line a little bit, it'll start to work a lot easier, and then you'll be able to see where those highlights are hitting everything. Okay?
Okay. Cool.
And if you get stuck with it again, let me know. We can come back, and if you give me the Photoshop file, I could turn it off and start painting on it a little bit and start rendering out a little bit. Because here, remember this whole area right here, that's like your nice little focal spot where all this is sort of happening. The one thing that I might recommend, if you look at how bright and hot that is, that's a pure white right there, right? And some of that going around it. I might tone that down just a little bit so you save your purest white for just highlights of one area. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I might tone that down a teeny bit and have it a little lighter. And then what you can do is then you can actually put maybe a very light core shadow on that to have that sphere effect. And then your bright white highlights would then be hitting on the table and the little areas around here. It'd be hitting here. It'd be hitting on part of the floor. It'd be hitting up here on the wall, especially up here around the wall. You're going to have some really, if you're this type of a hot highlight, you're going to have some really nice highlights and light spreading from here going this way along that edge. Okay.
Okay.
And especially with that source being right there, boom, this should be really hot up here. You should have some nice little highlights coming up on here. Okay. God, I almost want to dive in there. I could just dive into this and render for like 20 minutes. You know, you're going to have some really nice, like little reflective lights bouncing up there. You're going to get some nice little hot lights coming in here, and you're going to be able to really get some really cool little highlights popping in little areas, you know, like on edges, going across that beam right there, coming up over here. This should be, have a nice hot highlight on it. This is right there next to it. That should be super hot. So by getting these hot little highlights in here, Then if you come back to this, and if we dull this down just a little bit, and if we create a little bit of like a core shadow on there and help to push that down a little, those highlights will pop a little bit more in your piece. And then you'll notice them drastically. Okay?
Okay.
And remember Eric, don't do what Eric did, where he had like 10 hot highlights everywhere and it killed the piece. He had too much highlight, too much white in there. Too much bright white will kill it and it won't read. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, good stuff. All right.
Thank you.
All right, my pleasure. What's going on in the chat room? I'm like, hear people laughing and what are you guys talking about in there? Oh,
Nothing.
nothing? Okay. All right, just checking. That's all right. I think we all need a break, don't we? We need another spring break, you know? All I want to do is I want to go, I have this awesome backpack I bought. It's a backpack chair that folds out. I just want to go take my little chair and go sit and do watercolor for like 2 days straight and not be bothered by anybody. You know what I mean? In fact, I want a zapper. I want one of those electric zappers. So if somebody comes up and starts talking to me about their uncle or their nephew that draws, I can just zap them and say, please leave me alone. And then I can just sit and do my watercolor studies, you know? So yeah, spring break too, right? Okay. All right, Giselle.
Hi. Sorry, I'm not finished, but
That's all
like
right.
this time, yeah, I was like being obsessive, but like for the completely opposite reason of last time. Because last time
Yeah.
I was out of like frustration and not knowing I was doing. This time it's because I really I'm starting to really like it now. Like
Good.
I overworked the background and then I did the tree and I added some little windows to the house. Because
It's
like and last time
wonderful.
too, when you said it looks Asian inspired, I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's what I need to go for.
Yeah, I mean, it had those if you look at like Asian landscape, there's a lot of greens and blues in there. So yeah, I totally did. So it's fine. Don't worry that it's not due. I'm like I tell all my classes, I'm really big about quality over quantity. So if you, and by the way, I love these swirls you're getting in the hills back here. That's quite wonderful. That's a very nice stylistic choice. So don't worry about it. Keep working on this piece. I'd be more than happy to look at it as you keep plugging along. So it's the fact that you're here every day and you're doing the work and you're submitting, I'm totally fine with that. It's when people don't submit stuff and they fall drastically behind and then 3 weeks go by and I haven't seen a piece from them, that's when I start to get very concerned. And actually I have to send out emails telling people to drop my class in different classes today because they're just not turning work in and I'm not seeing anything from them. So yeah, this is great. Keep doing what you're doing here. Then when you sort of nail it down, you can show it to me again and then we can look at the lighting and make sure we're adjusting it and getting that to really work. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, it looks wonderful. That's fantastic. All right, Mr. Ciro. All right,
Hi,
look
Phil.
at that. How are you, buddy?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. That looks great. I'm doing better now. Things have gotten increasingly better. Toyota gave me a new transmission, which was cool. I just had to pay for labor, right? I'm almost done at my dad's rental. So after that, I get my life back and I get my weekends back and get to have a life where I get to go out and draw again. So we're getting there. Ciro, that's looking very, very nice. It's quite wonderful. You have a really good arrangement of colors in there that looks quite fantastic. There's 1 or 2 suggestions that I might give you. What do you think about darkening the trees in the foreground just a little bit?
A little bit more.
Yeah, let me go in there and see if I can't try to do it real quick. Let me see if I can select these real quick. That looks like my tree brush. Are those for my tree brush?
It is.
I can tell. I'm like, I know that branch anywhere, dude. So yeah, I can totally spot it. Well, that's my tree branch. I use that thing.
It's my favorite one.
I made that. I think I took a photo of some trees and then I superimposed them into custom shapes. Then I turned some into brushes and some into shapes.
Yeah. What's the story with that one? Because I think it's everybody's favorite one.
Really? I just, there's a couple parks by me here. I love going to parks to draw and sketch. So there's a couple here in Yorba Linda and Placentia area and some over by Fullerton too. They have these really cool old trees that are there. In fact, you know where Cal State Fullerton is, you guys, right? A lot of you guys were from there. There's that park on the other side it's like a long walking part. It's like a green belt. And they have some really cool trees and foresty areas as well that's over there. So I just go take pictures of trees and bring them in. Where I need to go though is Irvine Park. Irvine Park, oops, I did the wrong one. Let me get this area. Irvine Park down off it's like off Chapman, has some really, really gorgeous old trees, old oak trees that are huge. Arboretum's also really fantastic too. Arboretum's a little bit more compacted for things to put together. It's still one of my favorite places to draw though. I really do like there as well. Let me just
Is the park you're talking about by Cal State Fullerton like north of it if you follow State College?
It's okay. It's at the corner of State College and Yorba Linda Boulevard where that like frat house at Red Barn is, right?
Oh, okay.
But if you go to the left side where the residential neighborhood is, people park over there. I used to park there when I was going to grad school there. They have a long, windy, like greenbelt walkway, that jogging path area that has some really cool trees along it too. Does that make sense? So if you walk to the corner of Yorba Linda Boulevard and State College, you go to the left, there's a residential, and then you make a left there. There's a whole walking path and jogging path with like little exercise things. And there's some really cool trees and older items in there, you know?
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'll have to check that out.
Sure. A really cool place, even better than that to go, is Oak Canyon Nature Center in Anaheim Hills. That place is amazing. It's tucked in between these two large mountain hills in Anaheim and the border of Anaheim Hills. Okay. And the Arboretum was closed. I believe they might be opening it with the new COVID restrictions being relaxed. But that Oak Canyon Nature Center is just gorgeous. You walk in there, it's big, beautiful, giant trees. You can sit and sketch. There's a little store or whatever there, and it's free. And then you could go walk along, and then some of the paths go up these hills, and they go around part of Anaheim Hills right there. You know, so it's quite nice. Okay. All right. So all I did is I darkened real quick. And then the last thing that I wanted to do is come in here. It's really nice, Ciro. You have that really cool style. It's working quite well.
Thank you.
I just want to get what looks like little highlights on part of these. It would mimic sort of the light source direction.
You're right. Yeah, I didn't cross my mind.
If you do that with what I just did on the barn, I think you'll see it working pretty effectively, and you'll be like, wow, that's cool. I need to do that. You know? So hold on a minute. Let me take those. Let me put in another layer so I can control it. Let's go for, I wanted like a yellowish orangey mist, maybe about there. And then hold on, let's hide those. Let's go to our brush, fuzzy, and then, oops, I created a group instead of a, let me delete the group. Okay, and then hide those ants, and let's just sort of come along. So these should have a little bit more, oh, I forgot one. Hold on. Didn't do that guy. Oops. So light has transitions in it, right? Like little reeds that go from like yellow. So one of the transitions I think in this type of scene would be like a yellow to orange type of feel. So what I want to do is I want to have yellow coming in first, and then have a little bit of a transition going from there, spreading across to a little bit more orange. So let me hide those ants. And then if I take my brush here, I'm going to come along and hit a little bit more yellow. And then when I get down to here, I'm going to go down to like a 1 and get that really soft indication in there. See how much that just pops it immediately? It's like magic. It's like crazy black magic, you know. And then I'm going to come over here and let's slide this down a little bit more to orange and go a little bit orangier to about there. And then I can come back and hit a little bit more orange on there. So you might not notice it, but there's a little bit of a transition of yellow to orange hitting some of those little highlights. Okay, especially like right over there. And that's pretty cool. Hold on a minute. And then my God, what's wrong with me today? I didn't select this either. That's cool. That's pivotal in there. That little highlight, another little highlight there. Okay, and then hide those. Let's go back to brush. So I get a little bit more of those nice orange there, and a little bit more on the house right there. Okay, and I'm actually pretty happy with that. Let me get a little bit more yellow back in there on the other side, on like the tips of those trees. There we go. So I got that sort of nice transition happening in there. And then I think the last little thing that I would do, let me hit deselect, is I'd come back into the dock right here. And I would hit with a little bit more yellow, just sort of right here along this edge, very soft, and just sort of get a little bit of a highlight in there, maybe just very light. That's even maybe a little rich, right? Like that. And then the very last thing is I would come back here under your little shadow that you have. Okay. And I would, hold on, let me select that. And then I would come over here and let's go to balance and just on collect shadows and put a little bit more of a blue under there with a little bit more like that, a little bit richer, sort of like that. And then that'll compete. It'll create more contrast with the yellow above it because they're two complementary colors, right? And you see what it does, how it immediately pops that in there. In fact, I
Yeah.
like that so much now. Let me come in and just put a little spray right here on this. Let's have shadow that comes up around part of here and come up there and go up the side of the house right here. There we go. And then hold on, let me add this in too. Again, oops, wrong one. There it is. There, and then let me just hide those ants. And then on my brush this time, I want to go to a little bit more of a, like this sort of navy blue, but very lightly, like a 0.5. I'm going to come in here and sort of, let me put this on a separate layer so you can see it. I just want to sort of tint a little bit of the shadow side with that blue. What that'll do, see it right there? It really will pop out against those. It's because they're opposites. You have a navy blue and a yellow highlight. So all that stuff hitting together right there, and just these little tints of blue, just right in there, very subtle, and just a little bit under the deck right there. That's going to be quite wonderful, and it'll really fade it in quite nicely. So here, let me hit deselect now, and let's look at, let's take all these layers, we'll combine them together. Wait, before I do that though, I did want to put this blue layer. I thought it was maybe a little rich. I can maybe drop the opacity just a teeny bit to about there. I dropped it about 20% lower. And then if we compare, take all this now, okay, look at the difference. See what those highlights do and the little blue in there?
Yeah, big difference.
And then darkening a little bit of the foreground. Your focal point now becomes all right there, and it ain't gonna leave because of, you have the highlights in there. You have the trees pop really nice. And I really like those stylized trees. They really fit the little light hitting them. And then adding that little blue under there. See what the blue does? How it really anchors down part of the house. Blue is always in shadows. It's the cool side. So the blues against the warm really get it to sort of anchor in there quite nicely. Okay. And then one last thing you could do, instead of me just darkening these right here, you could come back up here and maybe put a texture of light blue stripes on part of the trees in the foreground. Very lightly, okay?
Okay, so a blue, what kind of blue?
Well, here, this is what I was thinking of doing, was just doing some, let me try it real quick on the layer. I might have darkened them too much, but you have this cool texture in there that I can sort of feel. So let me come in here and just select a couple little areas and make it look like a little bit of wood grain. I have a weird lag on my computer right now. So I was wondering if we took those, hide those, and if we come back and just sort of put a very light, nah, you know what, that's not going to work. Hold on. It might work if it's a little bit richer. It has to be the same color, has to be like in the same value range. There, you see how those stripes pop out of the tree a little bit
Yes.
on the left side? And if I do a little bit there, I had it too light, so I had to bring the color. So this is a good example of colors being different colors, but the same values. So you see this brown right here? If I click that brown, it's roughly in that same neighborhood as that blue. So if I put the little blue stripes on the tree, it'll help bring it a little bit more into the foreground, but I had it up too high. So if I'm having it down there, they're the same value, but different colors. So if I come over here and get those little stripes a little bit more pronounced in there, it looks like it's more of a little bit of a shadow side. So if we come back and look, let me switch colors here, and you look at that brown, you see how that brown's in the same quadrant right there? And then the blue little stripes I put, well, the blue is technically over there too. That's in that same area. So just by adding a little bit of that blue in there, it also brings a little bit of the trees to me, right? Hold on,
Right.
right there. It brings a little bit to me because, let me hit deselect. It's keeping it a little bit more in the foreground. Okay. Oops. Hold on, I just hit it with the wrong. There. Go back a couple steps. Yeah, like that. A little bit there, a little bit there. I think that's quite nice. And it has a way of just those little stripes on the tree being a little blue. It tells us that it's in the shadow area. Okay.
Sweet. Thank you.
All right. My pleasure. Did you get a screen grab of that? Do you want to snip it or can you take
Got it.
You got it? Excellent.
Yeah, it's on my iPad. I got it.
Okay. Excellent work. Really nicely done. What do you guys think? It's a gorgeous little piece, right? Wow. There's a lot of
Yeah.
talking in the chat room. I just looked over. It's like huge. I can't even, all I see is serial killer bears. Uh-oh. I don't even want to know what's going on right now in there. Okay. All right. I think everyone needs a break, right? Yeah. That's a portfolio piece there, Ciro. You have this really cool style. And if you get that level of color down like that and you keep knocking out pieces like that, you're going to be, that's your foot into being a colorist, you know?
Really. Thank you.
Absolutely. The one next thing you could do is, you see I put highlights on here. You could stylistically figure out how highlights would be hitting this mountain behind it. And you could have it very light and very soft.
Very soft. Sweet. Yeah, I'll play around with that.
Yeah, play around with that, because you could do something like, it could be like this. You could have, this is where you got to just play with it on layers. You could have what looks like, oops, let me hit deselect. You could have like little circles in areas that are a little bit more rounded, or you could maybe treat it as big chunks, like what's his name would do? Not Al Hirschfield, but Ivan Earl. Ivan Earl would come in here and put shadows like this on there, like these really large sort of moving. He would have some shadows that would split up and be smaller, and then he would come in and throw these nice, large, curving little areas like this. And then all you do is just like what I did right there. You just come into that, and you can literally just select this. Just go to, actually, let's put a gradient on it real quick. So if I take brush again, and we come back here to this yellow, I'm really softly, I'm going to go down to like a 0.3, where I barely have anything coming out. And if I just sort of go across, see that right there? And it just pronounces out that little bit of that line and what's happening back on those hills. And then you do that on the back layer too. And then you can even add a little bit of blue shadow under your skies up there, and it would work quite nicely. See what that does? How it gives it that just little bit of a stylized highlight feel, you know?
Yeah, I see that.
All right, cool, dude. Good work, man. Excellent job. Really
Cool.
proud of you. This is awesome. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. My pleasure. What are you guys talking about in the chat room?
Hiking.
It was Angeles National Forest. Now it's tarantulas and bears and serial killers.
Yeah, serial killer bear. We got to watch out for them, right? You know, yeah. Okay, let's dive into this. So, Mr. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm good. What are your thoughts on your piece here, brother?
Not done is what my thoughts are.
Okay, good. I'm just
Uh,
checking. I was gonna say, like, dude, you still need highlights, you need reflection, you need some little gradients on there. It's really
Oh.
working well. It's on its way. The values look
Yeah.
nice.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I definitely would not say this is finished at all. Been having a little trouble with time management ever since I got hired at AMC.
Okay. So are there lots of people going to the movies now?
There is a reasonable amount since now that Godzilla versus Kong is out.
So how do you do it, by the way? Do they families can sit together, but then you have to leave spaces in between?
Yeah, I've been told that they're open at 25% capacity. So I think as of right now, the theater rooms aren't technically like super full or super packed. But they do allow people to move to a different seat if I guess if they don't feel comfortable with the spacing from other people and whatnot.
All right,
So
cool.
yeah.
All right. Well,
But
just get. I like your
yeah.
picture. The color structure is working well. It just needs what it needs is the highlights and water reflections, the reflection of the house, the light casting up on part of the trees. All that will start to turn it and it will make it work. And then even on the sky back here, make sure you have a little bit of a gradient happening. Remember, we have a dome rounded. I know this ruins Eric's theory of being a flat earther, but we do have a dome around us, and that dome will have a light gradient that's on it. So you can have part of that gradation happening in the sky right back here. It tends to be a little bit more turquoise down here and then get a little bit lighter as it goes up and sort of rounds. So that can be an advantage to you with clouds. So once you get that in there, get some highlights in it, take a look at it, and then I can start. You're still at that. You need about 25% more in there before I can start tweaking on top of it. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm aware that there's a lot to be done. I've been mostly concentrating on the cabin since it's the focal point.
Yeah. The cabin's looking really good. I also want to address the shoreline, some rocks around there where the shadow would be a little bit more defined, the lights, then the shadows of the trees, the light hitting the trees and the house, having a highlight area, the reflection and all that stuff coming together. Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll have more done after work today and tomorrow because I almost didn't want to submit anything because I was like, man, this is almost just like, at first glance this and the last image I submitted almost looked very similar.
That's
I
all
didn't
right.
want to show up to class with something
Go ahead.
that
No, I'm not. Go get caught up. You have a good piece here. I think it could be a great piece. So go ahead and just finish up and allocate your time and manage it a little bit better and get it done. But I am going to give you the next project though that I want you guys to do thumbnails on. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So I'll give that to you guys towards the end of class. We'll talk about that. All right.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Chris.
All right.
Oh, Phil?
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah.
Hi,
Yeah.
it's Reaver. I uploaded my picture yesterday, but I don't see it on the list to do.
You don't see it. Oh, you know what? It might be in here. I haven't uploaded all the images.
Oh, okay.
I
Thank
only
you.
did the first row right here. That way, if Photoshop crashes, I don't lose it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
yeah,
you're
I
fine. It's
understand.
probably in there.
Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, Chris, if you get stuck on that too and you need me to spend some time with you showing you how to develop it a little bit more, just let me know and we'll set up a Zoom meeting. Okay?
Okay, yeah, sounds good. I'm just trying to figure it out on my own, but I'll definitely get back to you if
Yeah, I think
a one-on-one session
I think
would
you
help.
could pull it off, just adding in more of the highlights and some of the light in there. I think that'll start to bring it together, Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right. Connie,
Good morning.
good morning. All right. I love the house. The house is
Thank you.
gorgeous. So I really like the house. Um, it's, what do you think about putting a little bit of highlight on your trees to the left and around the house area?
Like to make them brighter?
No, I'm wondering if there's a way for us to make like a shadow side and maybe a light side to the trees. You know what I mean? Because your house has a light side and dark side. The rocks have a light side and dark side, but then the trees are very, very stylized and graphic. So I'm wondering if there's a way to maybe like, select one side of the trees and make it look like there's a light. Maybe there's a texture on them. Maybe one side of the trees might look like there's a little bit of shadow. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that would help, because you have this house, it's very realistic. The rocks are very realistic. Even the shore is very nicely textured. All that comes together. Then I sort of want to find out like, well, how do I get the trees to look a little bit more realistic like the houses?
All right, got it.
Because the trees have a very graphic sensibility that actually flattens part of the piece. So I'm wondering if there's a way, like maybe we have to do something. It's, maybe it's something like, let me just try this real quick. Like what happens if we take, what if there's a shadow side to the tree? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Under the trees, even though they're stylized, even also could be the far side of the tree itself. Let's see what would happen if I take that and copy and paste that, and then we go to levels and we darken it a little bit. See what I mean? See how you could have like maybe a little bit of a shadow to the trees around
Yeah.
the house? And then you could do the same thing with some little highlights then on top of that area too, where you end up getting these nice little gradients. So we still maintain the look and feel of your stylized trees, but we're also going in here and now making them look a little bit more three-dimensional, just like your houses.
Got it.
Are you typing? Is that what that is?
Oh yeah.
That's funny. It sounds like little mice running on a pad. Okay, there. So let me take that now. If we come over here, let me copy and paste that and put that up above. And if I go to levels, and if we adjust that a little bit lighter, there, do you see what that does? How that graphically gives it a cool little feel?
Mm-hmm.
The highlight in the dark. And then I'm just wondering, what if we had a texture on top of that? So it could be like a nice graphic sort of texture and this sort of grainy feel that you have here. Let me see, what's a good texture brush? Let's try that guy right there. Too strong. And that came out really strong, but let me blend it down very lightly. Just wondering if there's a texture built into the tree a little bit with that highlight and light side that might add to the whole entire piece. So I might try that. Now, one thing that I am concerned about, your tree is so bright in terms of chroma, it pulls away from the house a little bit.
Okay.
What if you dull down, and I'm talking about this local color here. Look at that. That's a pure, if I click that, it's going to snap all the way to the right-hand corner. You see that? Yeah, you're right up here. You're like pure chroma. What if you dull this down a little bit, and then you get the highlights on the house to pop and become the primary?
All right.
Okay. This color range back here is beautiful. I love that autumn feel that you did.
Thank you.
Okay, that's quite wonderful. With that autumn feel, what's your thought on this area back here? What is that supposed to be, like a large mountain, or what is that back there?
I think I was thinking that was like kind of darker clouds originally, because I tried it with like a lighter value and it just popped out, like it stood out too much. So I tried just toning it down, but I could make it mountains if it would make it like blend in better.
It's, let me see if I can just mess with it for a minute. I'm just wondering if it had a little bit. By the way, you did give me another great idea. Your wonderful little mountain treetops right here. You should shrink some of those treetops down and have them on the back of that mountain a little bit. That makes sense?
Wait, which ones?
I'll show you in a minute. You see these treetops here?
Yes.
You could have those very small back here on the top of your mountain a little bit.
Oh, you're right.
And then you would see just the silhouette of just that. And so this is what I was thinking. You have this autumn nice color scheme happening in here, but then you got this sort of grayish background, right? So what I was wondering is what would happen if we let's take let me get a gradient here. Okay, what am I doing? I lost my train of thought for a minute. Let me get a gradient on like a orangish feel from a yellow. And if I take that and hold on, I'm on the bucket tool, and we come in here and we put a gradient going in there, just like that. And then if we put this onto a light multiply, or that's too rich right there. Even a soft light's a little too, that's not bad. Right in there, I'm stuck between hard light, multiply is a little too rich, or even better yet, what if I leave it and we just do this? No, okay, maybe if I drop it down to about there, and then now let me go back and put it on the hard light. Look. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I wanted, and then let me erase, let me deselect. Come on, computer. My computer's going really slow. Oops. Right now, sorry. It's the recorder. Sorry. Come on, I keep telling it to go back to marquee. I think my computer's locking up. Let me finish this. There. So then, yeah, do you see what I just did there and why I did it?
Yeah.
I did that because I felt like that was a little too gray and it was flattening part of your colors. When you look at autumn color schemes, they tend to unite everything, like the lake. Well, the lake's still blue, but I mean the sky and everything. So you have these wonderful colors of these trees coming out, and that color of the sky is going to bounce back a little bit. And I think if you were to keep this a little bit more like that, and then if you were to come back in here, and then if we were to add a little bit more blue to the water itself, I think you would be quite happy with the outcome. Okay, hold on. I'm drawing that with the wrong angle. Let me fix this real quick. Oh, I can't get my hand to be steady. It's driving me nuts. Go, select. There it goes. Got that little spot in there. Let me select this in here real quick. All right, 1 minute. Okay, cool. So I have that selected now, and then watch, let's see how this will work. Let me come up here. Actually, I can just copy and paste that up there. And then if we go, there's a couple things I wanted to do. I wanted to put a little bit more blue tint on the midtone value of it, like that. Okay. And then on the shadow area, I wanted to put a little bit more blue as well in there, like that. And then at the very end here, now I'm going to select that layer itself, hide the ants, and then I want to come in with a nice sort of this like nice navy blue and airbrush a dark to light from the front going across it. So if I come back over here, take this, and now I come back here and we sort of hit this going across. Okay, that's too rich, but a little bit lighter. Let me go to like a 0.5. So if I come along here and maybe I go to a 1 there, and I get this nice, water has these nice little gradients in there. Do you see that? And what it's doing is by adding a little bit of that blue in there and making it a little bit richer, it's going to complement your warms that are in there in the piece. Okay, then now you could punch up a little bit more. You can now, because of that being a little bit blue, you could pronounce a little bit more of the reflection of the house. and of the shoreline in there. Okay.
Hmm.
So I think if you do all of that, and hold on, let me go back to the shoreline real quick. Let me do that a little bit. Let me get that little area in there. So 1 second. Hold on, my computer is getting all buggy because of the recorder. All right, select. There it goes. There, just like about there. Hold on a minute. Let me zoom in. I missed this part here. So if we take that right there, and then I'm just going to come in here and let's say copy paste, put that up above, and let's just darken that a little bit more. Hold on. I think I copied and pasted the wrong. 1 second. Let me duplicate this. Turn that one off. Now I need to merge these two together, and then copy paste, and then let's adjust levels and darken it a little bit more. Yeah, a little bit like that. Okay. So then the very last thing that I would do is if we pronounce a little bit more highlights on the house. Okay. Let me see if I can do that really quick. I would also probably consider maybe coming in and adding some little shoreline details.
Oh, like more little rocks and plants, right?
Exactly, little rocks, some little plants there. I'm trying to select little areas. It's not letting me do it. I'm getting a lag on my computer. Hold on. It's like 10 seconds behind. See what I'm, okay, how did I end up on there? I don't know. Let me Command Z. There, okay, so I have that pretty much selected. Let me hide that then. Let me make sure I'm on another layer. And we want to take this sort of yellowish, that was an accident to have that type of yellow there, but that might work for the highlights. So hold on a minute. Let's see if we get a little bit of a yellow coming across some of this, hitting some of these little highlights in there. And then I want to switch a little bit more to an orange. And then hold on, the last thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to come in and I wanted to see if I could lightly desaturate this tree a little bit so it's not as bright. So it doesn't compete against the house basically.
Okay.
Oops. Hold on, didn't mean to do that. Okay, so now that we have that desaturated a little bit, let me come back in and find that the highlight layer now has to be a little bit lighter in there. So the house gets the read. Okay. And then the very last thing that I would do is I would then increase a little bit more of the reflectivity of the house. Okay. So here, let's look at the difference. So if we look at this, that's what the sort of the changes were. That's where we were before. So you see a little bit, what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, much
So
better.
all I did was get the lighter colors of the trees reflecting off into the sky a little bit. And then I made the lake a little bit more of a light sort of cerulean blue. And then I put a little bit of a navy blue gradient going across the lake, because now you can get some really nice reflections in there. You can get some little highlights popping on that water. And I really think that'll bring the whole entire piece together right there, you know?
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I love doing this stuff, man. I can do this stuff all day. It gets me like super excited, where I just want to keep plugging away and working in there, you know? So it's a really gorgeous piece, Connie. That's going to be a great portfolio piece. And I think if one thing you could do, just my suggestion, because it'll add to it and it will overlap. You can put a little dock in here. You can have some rocks around the edge. You can have a little boat there. Any bits of detail you put over here will allow us to move away from the tree silhouettes and to focus on the house itself. Okay.
Mhm. Got it. Thank you.
All right. My pleasure. Thank you very much. All right. Okay. Mr. Josh. Mr. Josh, I think that's outstanding. And I love the fact you have made my day, because Josh has discovered my rake tool in the brush tool presets, which is an awesome tool, isn't it?
Yeah, those are fun.
It really is. You can really make a piece look like it is oil by carving and raking that through. So what we're talking about here is, remember you guys, on the smudge tools that I gave you, inside one of those smudge tools down here is this scratchy. It's like it looks like a rake, basically. It looks like this. See that? And you could go along and you could basically go like over this. See that? And we could smudge and bring these colors together and make it look like it's almost like, that's what painters do. Painters in oil painting will put down paint, and they have a brush that has those plastic tips on it, and then they'll rub that through and it'll spread all the colors together. And it's a great way of mixing and blending paint. Josh, I think this is absolutely outstanding piece. It came out very, very well. I'm so glad you lost some of the line in there, and what you did with the grittiness in here and getting that sort of textured feel, and these little dots around there, it came out quite wonderfully. It's an excellent piece, you know.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
I'm really stoked on that. That is just absolutely outstanding. Did you put that in your portfolio, by the way?
I haven't yet. I wanted you to check it out first.
Okay. No, but I mean, when you submitted to that company, did they see this?
No, they haven't.
Okay, yeah. If they saw that, they'd probably be like, yeah, he needs to be in your painting, you know.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll definitely add it.
This is a really, really nice piece. If I had any little comments that I might give, they're very, very minor. I might just down here underneath the base of that shadow, since you have so many little warms in here, I might put a little bit of like a navy blue shadow under there.
Yeah.
Like I was doing before. That will contrast against the red in here. And then where the red is, you could still get some little highlights on there too, you know?
Okay.
So, I mean, here, I could dive into it real quick, but yeah, if you just come over here, and there's a couple things you can do. So do you want me to do them real quick? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, please.
Let's start here. Let's start by getting a little bit of a nice gradient highlight hitting that corner. And then we're going to come back in and try to get some of that going along the top here. So you did a really good job of getting all this other information in detail up here. I don't know if it would really hit there that much. It would hit a little bit there. Definitely we want to get this. Oops, I lifted up my pen and I lost it. Okay. Yeah, we're going to make that thing really pop here. Okay, so you know what? You even have, I forget too, we have this golden little area here too that's quite nice to take advantage of. You also have, so you did an excellent job, Josh. I mean, you really separate out the colors and the feel of it, and it really will come together very nicely. Okay, so Here, let me hide those. Let's put another layer up on top. And basically what I wanted to do was sort of that same thing. You have this light that's filtering through here and you can feel it coming down. And then we want that to feel like it's hitting part of the house and creating this nice spread. So that's the orange part of the spread. And then if I flip up to this other color, let's make that sort of more of a yellow area like this. And then we'll get a little bit lighter spread. So we have that feeling of yellow light sort of coming in through here because you have a little bit of this yellow light right here. I can feel it. It's quite nice. So even if I come over here and lightly, I can't paint there right now. If I come over here to the house and I start coming along and getting a little bit of that yellow light hitting there, a little bit coming across some of the wood. And what I want to do is I really want to try to get it to be a yellow to like light orange sort of transition if possible. You know, it's funny. I get such in the I'm doing it with a mouse. The mouse has no control. It's just bad habit from old school days. There, if I get that in there a little bit like that and get that yellow in there a little bit on that edge too. Okay, then I'm going to come over. Now I'm going to switch to the orange. So remember light, if you look at light transitioning and like in the morning time, the afternoon, especially the bright morning or even in the sunsets, there's a transition in that color spectrum. It goes yellow, it goes to orange. After that, orange goes to red, red goes to violet, and violet goes to a blue. So if we remember part of that transition, you're able to come in here and try to get some of that where like this gets a little bit more orange on this side. That might be a little bit more orange here. We might have a little bit more sort of hitting along this edge here. And then what I'm going to do is see if I can't pronounce a little bit there, there, there. That's pretty cool. Let's look at the difference. There, we got quite a bit on there already. Okay. Now, the secret then to really pop in this is that was sort of our highlights, right? Let's now, in the back here where this behind the house is, let me zoom in, can't select. So now we want to come here and let's select the tree. We want to get a little bit of a cool to go onto this green area back in here around part of that tree. Here, let me just select that real quick and you'll see what I'm talking about. Uh-oh, I'm drawing over my hand and I can't see what I'm doing. Let me fix this real quick. Oops, wrong one. There. Okay, so that's the area that I want. And then I want underneath here too, really quick. Let me get this stuff. Sorry, it takes me a little bit to get this selected, but I think it'll be worth it. Okay, cool. Looks like I got most of it in there. And then, you know what, I might just add some of this very lightly in the back there too. Like that. Okay, excellent. So let's hide that. Let's minimize it real quick. And let's come in here with our brush, go to fuzzy. And I learned, you know, it's funny, I learned some of this when back in the day when I first started in the industry. I was working in MGM and I got to work with this woman who is amazing. Her name is Annie Gunther, and she was a background painter. And she'd worked at Disney. I mean, she worked at like Snow White. She knew Walt Disney. She'd been in the industry for like 35, 40 years. And I got to work with her on a production. And it was really amazing to sit and watch her paint. This is the type of stuff she would do. She would build up her piece in local color. Then she would come back and like put these little splotches of blue. And I remember a comment she told me once. She goes, I wouldn't be able to live without navy blue, because there's something really nice about a nice navy blue when it comes out at like a really light airbrush setting at like a 01 or a 02. And it just has a way of just filling in some details quite nicely and adding a little bit of a blue tint. So I'm coming under here, trying to put a little bit more of a blue tint. And then right here around the back of the house as well. Let me check my ants there. So I might go up. It's a little bit richer there. So there I went really dark too quick. So I want to come back and go to, I think I was at a 1. 1 was pretty good. I was building up. So I'm just coming along this area of that shadow. And then once I get this blocked in around there, I do have it here. It has to go a lot lighter because it's under there. Then I want to come into 0.5, Josh, and then I'm going to hit like the core shadow of the tree and try to blend in that a little bit more. Okay, it's still coming out a little rich. That's why I have it on a separate layer. So now I could come back in here, take this layer, and then drop it down just a little bit and get a little bit of that blue tint in there, like about there. That's pretty cool. And then even after I do that, another place I wanted to do that too was a little bit under your trees where your shadow area is. That'll help define the shadow. So like here where the tree is being overlapped, you did a really good job of getting this in here. I might select part of the tree itself and get sort of this area in there. Hold on, I made a mistake. I didn't mean to select that area and I'm hitting the wrong. Okay, hold on. Photoshop's wigging out on me. Lasso tool. Hold on. There it is. I got it back. Sorry about that. I have a weird lag sometimes in Photoshop, and that's what was happening there. Okay. Right there, I wanted to do it. And then I also wanted to do it right here under this part of the tree. Hold on. I had the wrong button selected like an idiot. Let me fix that, guys. I'm sorry. I'm drawing over my own hand and I can't see what I'm selecting. There it is. I got it there. I got it here and I got it here. And maybe that little guy there. Okay, cool. So now that we have that selected, let me hide it. And let's come back to brush real quick. And I'm going to go in very lightly, like a 0.5 because it's an area. And I just want to put a little bit of blue on there to anchor down part of that shadow. And then I'm going to come back over here and sort of do a little bit of that same thing. Right in there, and maybe a little bit. That's pretty good. I'm going to hit deselect, and I'm going to come in and just pepper a little bit more blue back in there, very lightly, a little bit more back in there and there. Okay, so let me sort of explain. Let's look at sort of the differences of what Phil was trying to do here. Let me combine these. So what I was trying to do is I was trying to create a little bit more contrast of highlights against shadows. And so by pushing a little bit more blue behind it and getting some highlights on there, it sort of makes this a little bit crisp. It still keeps the look of your piece. The only thing I might adjust is this got a little too blue over here. So I might take my eraser to like about 1% and just lighten this very, very lightly where I put that blue shadow on there and take a teeny bit of that off because that is sort of a highlighted area. So basically all I did was to sort of try to punch this area a little bit more and get some highlights to feel like they're hitting part of the house and getting a little yellow to orange transition with a little bit of blue behind it. And I feel like that helps anchors down this area of the house itself in there. Okay.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
All right, my pleasure.
Yeah,
Good
really
work,
good.
John. Josh, it's a great piece. I really love it, man. It really came out so cool. And I really like the stylized look you got back here. I really like the trees and everything you got in there. You really did a great job with this. Looks like you had a lot of fun, you know. So
Yeah,
excellent.
thank you.
Good stuff. Did you get a screen grab, by the way?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, next over here, we have this other batch right here. Everyone else that's in there. Let's bring these back through here. And let's load them up.
Phil?
Yeah.
Sorry, you had mentioned a background painter that you worked with. What was her name?
Annie Gunther.
Okay, cool.
She
Thank
passed
you.
away not too long ago. But Annie was, when what was really cool is she came out to the studios and she was like she was working in when they segregated women from men. So she was started working on Snow White doing line cleanup, you know, and so
Wow.
women were the inkers allowed in one building and then men were kept in a different building. And that's how she sort of came up through Disney. So she worked at Disney for so many years that later on she ended up being transferred. When she started painting, she got really good at painting. So she started doing the golden books for Disney, and she knew Walt Disney personally. And so when Disney was building the theme park, she moved Annie over into Imagineering. And then Annie would come down and help them come up with color schemes for the parks and the ride and stuff. In fact, a little cool story is once when we were at MGM, Annie had a little get together and I come walking into her backyard and there's this giant hand carved Pirates of the Caribbean sign sitting in her backyard. And I'm like, Annie, where'd you get that? And she goes, well, she's so nice and humble. And she goes, well, one day when we were redoing Pirates of the Caribbean and all this stuff. And she goes, Walt didn't like the sign. So he said, let's get rid of it and throw it away. And I said, well, if you're going to throw it away, can I have it? And he said, sure, take it home. So they loaded it in my car and I had it mounted in my backyard. So it was like the coolest thing to have this giant Pirates of the Caribbean sign just sort of hanging in her backyard. You know what I mean? So
That's so cool.
yeah, it's a pretty cool story. Annie was a really amazing person. She was one of those people that just had a really huge life in the industry, starting off from ink and paint and just line cleanup and worked her way up. By the time she had retired, she was a background painter and a visual development artist doing all kinds of really great stuff. She worked at Disney Features. She worked at Hanna-Barbera for like 10, maybe 15 years. She worked at Disney Imagineering. So she had a really great career, you know, and she was a real sweetheart of a person. So it was really a shame when I found out, because after I stopped working with her, I got my job at Big Idea. So I moved to Chicago. And then later on, when I got back here, I was so busy working. And then I found out that she had passed from just old age or whatever. And I was pretty bummed because I never got to say bye to her or got to talk to her after that. But she was really an amazing individual. So yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you. I'll check out her work.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it might be hard to find, but you'll see some of it floating around. So yeah, she's amazing. All right, Jahida, how are you?
Good. How are you, Phil?
I'm good. So this piece is looking really great. I really love the blue feel in there. What's your progression on this? How far are you into it?
I am not 100% sure, to be honest. I struggled a bit with this project because doing things in sort of a hyper stylized sort of kind of look is not my forte. So I did struggle with the project overall. I was hoping you could give me some feedback as far as how to improve it.
Sure, absolutely. I think one of the things that needs to happen, what's happening right now when I first look at this is my eye is going to these wonderful highlights that are up here along the tree right here. You see this?
Okay, yeah.
And
I
what
was
we
worried
want
about
to do-
that.
Yeah, we want to dull those down right now when we want those highlights to be on the house.
Right.
So what's happening is you've created, if you look at it, the biggest area of contrast is the wonderful detail on the trees with those highlights there. So
Okay.
we want to be able to take those highlights off, build the highlights on the house first and the surrounding area, then come back to it and then maybe add the highlights in, making them more secondary or lighter so they don't pull away from the house read itself. So one of the things you'll notice when you look at the house, we have a little light indication of light versus dark side, but not quite enough. So
Okay.
one of the things, let me dive into it real quick and see if we can, let me see what I can get done here. Let me duplicate the layer. So one of the first things that I would do is, let me come over here and let me take just a brush. Let me take this paintbrush and I just want to dull down some of these highlights on the trees right now. And that could be literally as easy as just coming over some of them about with a 20 to 30 grade. I'm just going to push them down a little bit.
I have everything on separate layers, so I can adjust it on the levels, no problem.
Okay. And then I replied back to your email. We could talk today after class.
That'd be great. I appreciate it.
Excuse
Thank
me.
you.
Towards the end of class, I already had a meeting at 1:15. So
Okay.
if we don't have time to talk after that meeting's done, I should be done about 1:45. You could come back, sign back in, and we could meet at 1:45.
Yeah, that's fine. If
Okay,
you want to
cool.
just shoot me an email when you're available.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll I had a previous appointment with a student at 1:15-ish.
Okay.
who had gone to Laguna College of Art and Design and was getting a little frustrated with their program and decided to come here, which was cool. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to get to meet with him and talk. Getting this a lot of people that are going to schools that are getting out of these programs, and they're like I'm not learning good drawing, perspective, and foundational skill sets that are allowing me to develop my drawings a little bit more, you know?
Yeah. No, I always say community college is the place to go. It really is.
Yeah, I'm really starting to I was talking to Mike about that the other day too, that I feel like we just have so much more that we get to. So I'm not knocking, I love Cal State Fullerton. I went to Cal State Fullerton and everything, right? But I just found out they have this new major there, and I looked into it. It's called like game art. No, it's game design and game art. And literally in the upper electives, you have one class in like Maya modeling, one class in digital painting, one class in something else. And I'm like, dude, you're not going to learn how to render, do concept art, and all of that in like 4 classes. That's it, 4 or 5
Yeah.
classes. Like you
No,
need
Phil,
more classes.
I was gonna chime in with that because I'm transferring into Cal State Fullerton, and
Yeah.
I thought like game art was the area for me because I'm like I want to do concept art for video games,
Yeah.
and apparently the closest thing they have to that with like the actual skill set I'd want to develop would be a BFA in illustration, so like not even game art at all.
Well, yeah. So this is what's weird about it, and this what I would have told you or anyone else is what they did, because I know Cliff very well. So illustration is more adaptive into that area. The problem with when I just saw this really quickly because someone actually sent it to me and said, "Did you know about this game art whatever thing that they're building there?" And whenever I see something like that, here's my concern. I'm not knocking Cal State Fullerton. I went there, I got my bachelor's and my master's, and I know the program pretty well. The part that upsets me is this, and I'll just tell this little side story. I was recently contacted by another college, a community college, that decided to create a certificate / degree in visual development. And I sat there and I made a comment and I said, how can you do that? Like, do you know what visual development is? The only people that get into visual development are people that have been in the industry for at least 10 years. And most of them come from background design positions. And that's, you get there after 10 years of work. So to tell students that you're going to have an area in visual development and you can go out and get a job in it, that's totally misleading and false. And I'm totally against that for that context, you know, because it's a real rarity that you go into visual development unless you have really strong skills. In fact, one of our students that was in our program that went to Art Center that got out, Rachel Elise Morales, she just got a job at DreamWorks getting to work in visual development. Okay. That's different because she had the skill sets for it. The chance of you getting out of another school and doing that right away are very, very difficult. Like I said, when I go back and I look at a whole bunch of my buddies and people that I worked with in the industry and look at what their backgrounds are, they worked a minimum. Michael Spooner, Paul Felix, Simon Rogers, all of these artists, Sam Mitchlap, they all worked in doing layout design first in background design for numerous years, and then they got involved a little bit more into the visual development side. So it just bugs me when programs and schools are trying to sell that off as like an area or course of study. You know what I mean? It's really hard to have that as a dedicated course of study, you know? I just feel like there has to be some level of accountability with classes and stuff. You can't just go around labeling. So what's happening is people create these labels and they're trying to get students to be like, oh yeah, you're a visual development artist. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. And you're like, well, wait a minute here. You don't understand how those levels work. You just don't dive into development. You have to be excellent at environments and characters and posing, camera mechanics, and then you get into that level with composition and development at a later time, you know?
I feel like it's kind of like those advertisements you see for like video game college, where it's like design video games and get a degree in like video games, but like it doesn't do anything. Like no one's looking for someone with a degree in video games. They just want to know like, can you do good work or not?
No, everything you just said is exactly right, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah. Give me a second, guys. I'm sorry, 1 minute. I have to text back to my wife. So my wife had to go to the doctor today to get something medically done, and I'm just making sure she's okay and not all bummed out. So, okay, give me 1 second here. All right, Jahida, what I'm doing is I'm trying to, I want to get more of an area light and dark to the house. There wasn't enough light and dark happening on the house. So I
Right.
lightened one side, I darkened this side, and now I'm going to throw some shadows casting over here to the side here. What I'm going to do for the shadows is I want to come in here and I'm going to take that smudge nice option here and see if I go down to like 0.5 and I can't get some of these to just lightly blend in so they're not so hard edged. So if
Yeah.
I'm just taking my mouse now and just coming in and blending a couple of these little edges in here and to show you how we want to start looking at your piece with the light coming in and coming through here. The next thing that I wanted to do is I still want to bring these trees here and a little bit more into the foreground. And the easiest way to do that is going to be to darken them just a teeny bit, very lightly. And
Okay.
that could be a double-edged sword, because if I darken them too much, it could go a little bit too much against me. Hold on a minute here. Let me just select this and then I'll talk. There, I got most of that. Let me take out that little pocket there. But the problem is there's so much like little detail on these trees. We need to find a way to get in there and darken them a little bit. We need to pull them a little bit more into the foreground. And if we do that, our focus will be a little bit more on the house itself. And this stuff, I mean, it is really hard. It takes a little bit of time to sort of get this nailed down. And I understand some of you guys get stuck on these. Okay, there, I think that's pretty good. So let me go in here. Actually, what I'm going to do to save myself time is copy and paste, put it on a separate layer, and then I could go into levels, and then I can darken that a little bit richer like that. So now that's going to allow us, see how the house popped out immediately in there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing now to this tree. Give me another second. Let me go in and select this guy here. We want to darken that a little bit too. There, that's looking pretty good. Okay, copy, paste, levels. There. So that's going to bring it drastically into, oh, whoa, that, what happened there? Okay, Photoshop lagged and it changed it. So that brings it much more into the foreground now, okay? The next thing that we need to do is you have a light that's coming through here, but the majority of your light is more of what I would call a cool light, right? You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That could work being a cool light, especially when we look a little bit smaller. The problem is your whole environment is pretty much cool in there. So
I see. So putting in a warm light will give a little bit more contrast.
exactly. So there are a couple options that we could do here, and I want to sort of throw all those options out at you. Is this one option is you know what? Let me try the light first. So let me put warm here, and then what we're going to do now is let me drop that underneath these layers here because I copied and pasted those. So if I come over here and let me think for just a second, I need to have a warm light. That's warm. We want a yellow to orange sort of transition. And then let's get the fuzzy brush over here. Uh-oh. Where'd my fuzzy brush go? It's gone. I think I deleted it by accident. That's not it. That's drawing. Maybe that is it. And I moved it. Okay. And I'm making this really bright so I can dull it down a little bit in a second. There, that's pretty bright right now. And then I want to come over and get a little bit more of orange in there. All right, 1 second here. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then I can now fade this down a little bit and get a little bit warm in there. And then I want to come back and now I want to put a layer up on the house where I can start to see some of these transitions happening. So here, should be able to get some highlights there, some in here, some along part of this line in here. Let's try that for right now. And then what I want to do too is, even though they're stylized, we can have some of these warm transitions hitting part of these circle shapes on the top. One of the golden things that our eye is attracted to are the gradients and gradations that take place on a painting. And if we get those done correctly, they can really come in and aid into our work, and the eye will know exactly where to go and what to look at. And you have some of these, I just need to get them to match up to not just the house, but also some of the surrounding rocks and details that you have here. So I'm doing that right now by selecting some of these areas very quickly. Something about the human eye and the brain, we love to see these little gradients happening. I think gradients are part of the natural way that really light transitions and bounces around pieces.
Mhm.
There, I think that's pretty cool right now. And okay, just very lightly, I'm going to select a couple in the back here to reinforce those too. Okay, there we have quite a bit selected. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to hide those and make sure we're on a separate layer. We're going to call this highs. Okay, and then let's come in here. Let's take our fuzzy and we're going to start. Let's get a nice yellow in there, say about there. I want to try to get them to pop a little bit around the house a little there. And then some of that yellow down here, it's going to be hitting on some of these rocks.
Yeah.
So that yellow against that blue will really start to pop quite nicely. Okay. Here I want to do it very light in the background up there. Okay. And then I'm going to hit X and I just switch to the darker orange. So this side over here should be more of that orange starting to come in. So we get that feel of light spreading and changing a little bit. In there. Okay. And if we even had the chance to even go from there and go a little bit more to a red orange too, that could be cool because that'll give you that feel of, hold on a minute. Hide. We need to add more in here now. Hold on, I hit the wrong button again. I have this weird 1.5-second lag with Photoshop, and it drives me nuts whenever I'm selecting stuff really quick. Is sometimes I hit the wrong button and then I'm minusing and I'm not adding to my selection. One second. Okay, let's hit hide real quick. And I'll come back in with my brush now. And then over here, trying to get a little bit more of that warm feel coming in there. So I wanted to sort of get this yellow feel to red coming in. That's not bad. And then let me switch back to a little bit more of the orange. Okay, that's not too bad. All right, so let me hit deselect here. And then those are really bright, so I'm going to lightly, a couple things I could do to blend those in. One is I can drop the opacity down. And I can get those little highlights blended in a little bit more. Another thing I could do is I could run it through a filter or Gaussian blur and get them a little bit more desaturated too. Okay, so hold on a second. Let's commit to what we have right here. And I'm liking that so far. And then the next thing that I want to do is I want to pronounce a little bit more of a shadow coming off of this house and maybe going around here to anchor this down a little bit. And maybe some of that shadow comes up here and then goes here and spreads a little bit back into there. Okay, let me take part of that blue right here, add in another layer, hit hide. And then along with that, I also want to darken. I'm now going to select part of the shoreline around here. One of the problems is that water sort of looks watery, but it also looks a teeny bit muddy too. I'm wondering if we might need to oh, hold on, copy, paste, there it is. And then darken that shoreline a little bit more, about in there. Okay, hold on a sec. Let me darken the rocks a little too. And then I had one more idea. Let me see if I can pull this off. I want to redo the water layer on top. And let me just try to hide those. All right, give me a minute here. Okay, so what I did is I tried to lock in a little bit more on that layer. Hold on a minute. Let me add those up together. And then let me take the house real quick. All right, now, hold on. I don't like this little weird angle here. So let me just erase this. Let me try to fade it in, erase it like 10%. Try to get that in there. Now I have a little bit more room to get some highs in there.
Yeah.
Because I darkened the water a little bit. That was my whole intent of darkening the water. And there's a couple little things we could do for highs. Let me just try this real quick. I do have this one little water brush thingy. Let me see if I still have it here. Let me try that guy real quick and see what happens. If I come in here, the reason I want to do this is you have this light spread of yellow to orange. I think if I use this correctly on a separate layer, I can get that highlights in there, but I need the pattern first. So hold on a minute. Let me click here. There, let me get a, okay, that's coming out way too, let me get to a yellow here. Okay, let me get it the right way. Come on, rotate brush. It's on a jitter rotate there. So if I take that in there real quick, and then I would do one layer at a time. So let me select this real quick. Let me transform that. Let me try to squash it. I want to get some little highlights up in there. And let me go to distort real quick. And then hold on a minute. I didn't like that. Sorry, guys, this takes a little bit longer. I was worried today we could run out of time, but if we do, we'll just continue this in the next class. I think it's really important to us for us to spend this time on everyone's work and try to give as much constructive feedback as we can. Okay, hold on a minute. I'm going to move that to more of a white highlight that's in there. Coming across that water. Let me go to the other brush that I have. It's a little bit different. Another new layer. And this time, let's go back to the white. If it's done in white, then I can select a layer later and adjust it. So I could take that. I can grab the corner, squash it in a little bit. I can get that highlight sort of where I might want it to be. Let's say about there. And then I might switch back up to a highlight brush like this. So I'm going to combine these highs together. So they're on a little bit separate. I'm going to fade them in a little bit. So I'm going to take my eraser, erase a little bit off the shore there, get it to maybe fade in a little bit over the water. And then I'm just going to come in very lightly with this and just sort of see where I can get this to fit in. Just sort of very lightly drawing across, trying to find a good rhythm or flow. Come on, come out very light. There it is. It's coming out a little bit lighter. Like so. Okay. I still would want to tweak those, maybe those little highlights a little bit more. I mean, they might be a little too much, but they're okay. Let me drop them down just a little bit. And what's really cool is you should be able to select them like this, hit hide, and then you can come in and match the water reflection from the light coming across. So if we have this sort of bright yellow like this, and we take a fuzzy brush, you could come back in here and now sort of come across and see, you'll turn those yellow highlights into a little more of a yellow tint. So we could lightly come in at like a 0.5 and sort of spread that out by going across some of those highlights. They should be being hit a little bit. They are being a little bit, some of them are lightly getting lost though too. So might blend that in. So basically the one last thing that I want to do is I might want to put a little bit of a light ray and a couple particles in there. Okay, so this is how I would do the light ray, is I'm going to come over here and I would take a nice big broad brush like this one, and I'm going to take it on a yellow, and I'm just going to sort of go like this and see if I can hold shift and hold them on. Let me hit deselect. Let me go to about 2 or 3 and just see if I can get a nice sort of like that. See that? But I'm going to hold shift to keep it straight like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to darken a little bit more of the back side of it like that. Then, since it's on a separate layer, I'm going to go to transform and I'm going to go to distort, and then I'm going to pinch this side of it like that. See that?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to turn it and rotate it. And I'm going to try to see if I can get some of this to blend in, coming in like in this direction, sort of coming through here. And then I'm going to select all, copy and paste. Oops. It's not wanting to do that. So let me drag the layer down. Come on, I'm getting a weird lag right now. There. I'm going to bring that one down. And this one, they need an axis tool on here in Photoshop. So if I hit transform, make that a little skinnier in size. Okay, then we rotate it and get that coming in a little bit more about there. Coming in through about, let's say about there, behind that tree a little. Okay, I'll move it in a minute and then we'll adjust it. And then let me paste, let me drag it again. I'm going to do it again one more time. Maybe in about down a little bit like that. And what's cool is they're all on these different layer options. So I can adjust the opacity of them and I can get them to lightly blend in. And then I'll erase the edges in there to get that in a little bit more. This one I want to have very light sort of coming in there. And then this one up on top. Not bad. Let me lighten it just a little bit more like that. And then I'm going to add all these together. Now I'm going to come in very lightly with my eraser and sort of start to blend these. I'm going to erase where they're being overlapped. So let me take my eraser to 100%. Let me go over the trees. So it fits sort of behind the tree, fits behind that, behind the house a little bit. And then with my eraser, like 10%, I'm just going to come along and sort of hit these edges and try to blend this in maybe a little bit more. So I have that sense, the lights sort of coming in through there a little bit, which isn't too bad right there. And then the last thing I'm going to do is put some little sparkles around that might look like they're little dots of dust and dirt hitting, collecting. Actually, there's even a couple, sometimes you can do this with I used to have a leaf brush, but I don't know what happened to it. That can work pretty well too. So hold on, let me hit deselect and let me come in here. See, I'm not getting any sparkles. Why not? Oh, they're coming in there. They're just very light. When things come in from a light source picks up these little bits of dust sort of floating around sometimes. And here I can even transition this. I can get a little bit of white in there too. And then let me check here. This one might be a little bit better. I don't want white. I want to go back to that yellowish tint. Oh, that one's much more subtle. Yeah, that's sort of cool, like that. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at what we did completely. All right. We'll compare the difference. So I darkened what was in the foreground. I tried to get the light a little bit more on the house. I pronounced the left side to right side read of the house. We added a little bit more blue shadows. We got the light coming in and hitting parts of the little treetops there. Okay. And I think the house is a little bit more of the focal point. I think one of the last things that I might consider doing is coming in with a brush very lightly and defining a little bit more of this, oops, not that lightly, a little bit more of this maybe blue down here around the house. Actually, I need to go maybe more of a blue like that, a little bit more like a cerulean sort of dark blue around here and just darken that a teeny bit. So right now, look at the difference. You see here how our focus was on the trees?
Yeah.
And it was hitting there. Now our focus is coming into the house. Now let me Command Z a couple steps back. I shouldn't have merged my layers because I'm realizing now that I looked at it, if I come back into my light's a little intense. So I want to be able to drop that down and make it a little bit softer, a little bit more subtle, sort of coming in through there. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the way that's going into that direction now. Okay?
Yeah, it looks a lot better.
Okay, so that's what I would sort of do. I just darken what's in the foreground, get a little bit more emphasis. Even though these bushes are stylized, they're still going to have light hitting on top of them, and they're going to have that read. And now we're much more focused on the house itself. And There are a couple little things you could do. You could develop some more rocks. You could have a little dock right there or something else. That overlap could help. But I think this just comes together quite nicely the way that it is by us just modifying, all those little layers, everything down to, even that reflection I could probably take out and you're still looking pretty good. You can see the highlights a little bit more visible. We have that blue locked down. In fact, let me take the highlights off. Look at the difference in the water. You see how that greenish now with a little bit more blue, it feels a little bit more like swamp water,
Mm-hmm.
the lights coming in and so on, those little sparkles coming in there. Okay.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. Thank you, Phil. It looks a lot better.
All right, my pleasure. Did you get a screen grab of it? You want to snip it?
I got a screen grab.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you. All right, cool. Let's jump ahead here. So we have now River, right?
Yeah, hi.
All right, looks good.
Thank you.
Came out really nice. I'm really liking it. There's only one little thing that I want you to look at and see if you can notice.
Okay.
I do go to the house, but when I get to the house, I go to somewhere first. Can you see it smaller?
Oh, the rock tip?
Yeah, the rock tip. You got it. So when you shrink it down there, that rock tip has quite a bright little highlight on it with the surrounding little dark values around it right here. So what I would do is I might dull that down a little bit. And what you did there is I might put a rock or two, or look, you have this whole dock area here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have no highlights on that dock right now. You've had a couple highlights on these corners around the house, on that dock. You have some nice highlights here. If you got little something there, that would really pop that area as your primary read. It would keep it locked in right there. Okay. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really minor. I mean, in fact, we could even watch it happen if we just come over here and we just dull this down a little bit and make that secondary. Look, your eye immediately starts to go to the house now,
Yep.
because the rock doesn't have such that very strong highlight on there. So these trees back here are really nice. Just remember, if this yellow orange coming from the sky is hitting in here, you're going to have a little bit of that yellow orange hitting around the trees around the house too. Okay. And some of it can be literally as simple as us just coming along and putting some little light highlights of that yellow orange hitting along the tree there, a little bit over there, maybe a little here, a little there, a little around there, and it'll sort of bring it together quite nicely. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's a good piece. Looks fantastic. All right, I love it.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions about it? Or are you okay?
Oh, actually, I think I do have one about the yellow flowers on that one little hill.
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do to make those just look more cohesive?
On this little hill?
Yeah.
If anything, I might even lightly dull them down because I was worried that they're maybe pulling away a little bit from the house area,
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. I think they're fine. Like your trees blended in really nicely in the back here. I might just lightly tap a little bit on these and knock them down just a little bit. Then, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could put some of those around here, around the house, and that'll really pop the house even more,
Yeah.
I did have one other little idea on this piece. Let me see if I can do it real quick. And I should have saved the original so we could look at the difference between them. Let me just do this really quickly here. What I was wondering is if, let me just do it real quick like this. Oops. Okay, give that up. I'll come back and fix that. And Let me try this. It could work, it could not work. So we'll just see in a minute here.
All right.
What I wanted to do is change the gradient color of your sky just a teeny bit and see what we come up with. So I have that selected. Let me see. Let me make sure I got a new layer here. Nope, that's not looking right. Let me see here. I was just wondering if there's a little bit more. You have the nice highlights on the house, that yellow orange, you know?
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out, maybe here, maybe I just need to take this and just grade it in. I was wondering if you'd have a little bit more yellow orange floating around the back of the trees a little bit like that, you know, around the piece. But you know what? It's not, it sort of kills the blue green that's in there, and I sort of like the blue green better. So,
Yeah, me too.
yeah, so I like that better. In fact, what if I did this? What if we erase all of this? What if we maintain this blue green and then we have that blue green against a little bit more of a yellow orange sky? That might be a better, instead of getting it in the hills, we keep this color here. That's a really pretty color. That sort of soft cerulean blue that's in here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think it didn't quite come out the way that I was wanting it to come out. So I was just wondering if, but I think it's fine the way that you have it. So yeah. So I think I would just maybe throw a little bit of highlight on there, and then I wouldn't worry about the rock in that area. This is your focal point, and everything is going to that little spot right there. I think it's quite nice. You know, it works.
Thank you.
Works really well. So it's a very solid piece. I just wanted to get a little bit more of yellow orange around the trees back there. And
Yeah.
dulling that down, that becomes our little, and your rocks that are in there, they're there, but they're so light, you can barely see them. Do you see that?
Yeah.
You could darken these quite a bit and paste a couple more around there. And if you did that, they would pronounce out a little bit more, and they would be a little bit easier to see from where you're at. Almost want to put a couple more along there. It does something nice for that little shoreline with those rocks. Look, they're very wonderful. All right, yeah, it's a good piece. It looks really great. Love it.
Thank you.
Maybe just come in, a little bit of highlight on that dock and on the stairs, and I think you'd be good to go. You know?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Good work. It's fantastic.
Thanks. Yay.
All right. Next over here, we got Naomi.
That is mine.
It is yours. You still don't like darkening this foreground, do you?
What? Dog, are you kidding me? I did.
Did you?
I did.
I still want to make it a little richer. Hold on, not wrong layer.
Because you know what I did? Okay, literally, I had it prior to this. I had it hella dark, and then you were like, "Oh, you should lighten it a bit more," and then I did.
Hella
you
dark,
were like,
like
"Oh,
hella
I think you should
cat?
darken it."
Yeah. I like that. Hella dark. I got to use that in my next meeting. That's hella ridiculous. I'll say that to the dean, and they're gonna look at me like, "What did he just say?" Right?
I
Yeah,
just scheduled my vaccine.
I think it looks good. It looks really nice. It has a very nice stylized feel to it. I think the one last little thing I might do is come in here and put some little lines or textures on the front of that house.
I see.
Just, you could do something really, really simple, even with like, the line tool in Photoshop, or what is it? Or just even the straight pen tool. We were goofing around with Photoshop the other day. There it is. So if you just had some, heck, this might even work just like this. Oops, not like that. Where's my line control? Wait. Where is it? That's why we're at 40 point. Let's go to 1 px. And then you could come in here. You can just get some little, just like little lines on the house. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it helps show that there's a trade-off in there. This looks really gorgeous you did. So see how you put that little yellow and orange on the trees?
Yeah.
Put a little bit of that on the house too, right there, hitting that
Okay.
little highlight, and then put a couple lines on there for, wood texture, and they could be going like this way type of thing, and
Right.
perspective and being a little off kilter. That'll just help anchor it down. In fact, you can even have some of that sitting over here on the dock,
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I think it looks great. I'm still tempted to, I think I did this another time on your piece, because I selected some little spots here and I made them look like little changes in grass and made them a little darker. You know what I mean?
I see.
It creates a little bit more contrast on the shoreline and what you have, just like that. See that?
Mm-hmm.
And then it just has a way of a light against dark with the little details, little lines on the houses, and then you get some of those yellow orange highlights right there, and I think you'll be good to go. It's quite a wonderful little piece. Okay.
All right.
All right. Good job, Naomi.
Thank you.
All right. Excellent. All right. Next over here, we have Leonie.
Hi, Phil.
All right. Hi, Leonie.
I tried to change the color in the background, but it's not working. But I think I still need to work more on it. I don't really like it.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I think that's a good call. Getting this, I think what's happening, it's a cross combination between the color of the trees in the foreground and what's happening back here in the sky. Because what's happening here in the foreground is your trees are getting a little bit of what I would call like a muddy feel to them rather than a green feel. So what I might do is also throw a couple layers on top of the trees in the foreground and try to get them a little bit more. Do you see where they are in the color picker? They're like in this very dark 70% green area, like here. You see that?
Yes.
I would maybe try to get a little bit more color in them and get them somewhere up around here and see what they look like, on
Okay.
top of that. So let's, first things first, let's take a value and look at it on top and see what's happening with the values themselves. Okay, so if we come over here and we come back here and look, so your values are actually holding together pretty good. I think there's a couple things here. One is eventually you're going to need to lose the line on the house, because nothing else in your drawing really has line except for the house itself. So I would go in and define a little bit of the light side and the dark side of the house just by using levels and lightening and darkening it. I don't think nowhere else in your piece do you have line in there,
Okay.
So that would be one of the first things that I do. And then I'm just tempted really quick. Let me see if I can help do this with the trees really quick. I can't talk. If I just select this area in here, let's just throw a little bit of a layer. Actually, I should select that too. I want to try to give this just a little bit more color. It got a little bit more in that muddy
I see.
world, and I want to bring it out of it. Okay, so if we take that, let me see what would happen. Let me duplicate that layer, let's put it there. And then let me select those, and let me just see what would happen if we put a layer above them. And we go to that's not too bad. See how they're so gray, right? Almost like a mud color. I wanted to put a little bit more color back into them like this.
Okay. Okay.
A little bit more, but I'm wondering if it's not just the all solid green, if maybe there's a little bit of a like a yellow top too. So hold on a minute. Let me select that layer again. And then what we can do is come in here and deselect part of this all in here. And then let's deselect part of this. And then let's come back and let's take our colors and slide them a little bit over into more of a yellow orangish type of feel. And see, before here, we had this on soft light. I wonder if I come back here, put this on a soft light there like that a little bit. That way we get a little bit change in the tree itself. Now you could erase some of this to get the branches in there. Hold on, I'm having a weird lag. I'm hitting erase and nothing's happening. Oh. Actually, you know what? Give me a second here. I was wondering if we just needed to put a whole new tint of color on the whole piece. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Hold on, let's go through this a little bit at a time here. That made it a little bit warmer. And then having these little, hold on, let me see if I come back into these right now. Let me hit deselect. Let me erase. Let me see what I have in what layer. So that layer is empty. Let's delete that one. There, that's the tops right here. Erase. Give me a second. Get some of those branches back in there that you had. So now I got the color, a little bit more of color back into the trees, right? So
Right.
let me combine that. That's one of the problems about when you work with these layers like this. If you combine them, they have to go back to, since it's a soft light layer, we have to combine the layers, put it back on soft light, see how they're working. I feel like we lost a little bit more of the yellow that was in there. Let me go back. No, I guess it's pretty much equal. So let me combine those. Come on, Photoshop. Combine them in. We get the color back. Let's go to soft light. And then soft light allows them to come in a little bit more. Then here, let me come back here. Let me see if I can merge these two together. And then let me go to levels. And I'm going to see if I darken that. So I got the color back, and then I'm going to darken them a little bit more to bring them more into the foreground. You see that?
Yes.
So I try to get the color and to get it out of being muddy, darken it to bring it back in the foreground. So these become the lighter values back here. And then having that little yellow tint on the whole piece does unify it a little bit better. And then what I might do is back here in the sky, I feel like, you know what it is it's maybe this purple in the sky. To me, that would be more of a cerulean, like a light blue rather than a purple back there. So you might have to figure out how to sort of adjust that back here. Let me see if I can just sort of do it really quick. What would happen if I came in here and selected that? Because I have the trees and the other stuff on top. Let me see if we can just put a coat of blue on it and make it a little bit more like this. Hold on, let's get that blue. Let's go maybe a little bit more. No, that's not bad. I wanted the darker to be on top. That's pretty good. That's not bad. I feel like that's working a little bit better. What do you think?
Mhm.
So what I wanted to do is I felt like the trees were just too, let me combine all these. We'll just take them off one at a time. So I felt like the sky needs to have a little bit more blue in it, and I would probably ditch the purple and go more of a blue. Skies tend to be a very light sort of cerulean blue. The trees were getting a little too muddy, so I needed to select part of the trees and add the value back into them and then darken them a little bit. And then I put a little bit more yellow orange over the whole piece to sort of bring it together. So let me combine all these layers together, and then we'll look at the difference. You see here how more gray it is, and it's a little bit more on the muddy side. Now we have a little bit more color in there. And I still want to darken the trees a little bit more because they're in the foreground, but we have a little bit more color and we're not as muddy in there. Okay.
Okay.
So try that a little bit. Get rid of the purple out of the sky, and I think that'll help it. And then take off the line on the house. Then you can get light. If light's coming in from the right side, we can get some light side and dark side. And then I could go back and paint a little bit more on top of it. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next over here, Mr. Whitesell.
Hello.
Hi, Eric.
So I hear I have a problem with my highlights.
You do have a problem with your highlights? Is it? Yeah.
That's what I hear.
No, the plane, the problem is the plane looks too awesome. You know what I mean?
I'll make it look worse, don't worry.
Well, here's the struggle is the house and the plane are the same width. I go to the plane because it has the lights and the cools, the red and the white, and the plane pops. That becomes like the biggest area of contrast. So I guess the question is how do we get the barn to pop? Yeah,
because I spent like 5 minutes on the plane. I was like, oh, I'll just put a plane in there, and like it ended up looking really great.
Yeah, it did. It looked super duper cool. So hold on a minute. Let me give you this other option here. Because if you look at the value of it, do you see how the barn is blending in?
Oh, that's a good idea.
The barn is blending in completely into the trees in the background. It's so much of the same value, and there's no real highlight streaking across the barn and getting it to pronounce.
Yeah.
Versus the plane has a very distinctive pattern of highlights and cools and warms. Dude, you're bouncing light. You can see the bounce light coming under the plane wing here. Look at that. It's bouncing. You're picking up the blue of the water. All that wonderfulness is happening on the plane, and your poor little house is out there struggling all alone. You know what I mean?
It's all forgotten.
So there's a couple of things you could do. Step number one, you could increase the size of the barn a little bit, make the plane a little bit smaller. That could be one option. Okay. Another option that you could do is you could get this, see how you have the striped line in there of the highlight and the shadow? You could get some of that on the barn, not only on the barn, but then you could also, if there are warm lights coming down this way, some of that's going to hit the trees behind the house. Okay.
Okay, so put like a highlight on the left of them.
Exactly. If I come in here right now, I'll just do this super quick with my lasso tool. If I come in here and just go along part of these. And by the way, your house has no, it only has a white highlight on it. It doesn't have much of an indication in terms of a color highlight coming from.
Okay, I tried to
above.
bounce a tiny bit of blue off the top of it just from the sky, but I don't think it came across very strongly.
No, that's okay. You can still keep that blue in there because you're right. It is going to be bouncing off from the sky. But also, look, you have these wonderful colored highlights right here. Do you see this? Hitting the shore. You have it even hitting part of the wheat right there, that field right there. But then there's nothing really coming across here hitting parts of the trees. If you pop out some of the highlights on that tree.
Oh, wow, that's great.
And then if you lightly also continue that in a gradient style.
So it looks like you're mostly doing like kind of leftwards leaning little like ellipses, kind of like that's your.
Yeah, I'm doing like little half circles, little curves in there, really, really fast is what I'm trying to get.
Yeah.
And then if I come in here and get, look, if I just hit a little bit of those along there, do you see how that pops that area too? So if you pop this area, hold on a minute, let's come in here, let's go back to that color. It's not really swapping the exact color that I want. I want it to be a little bit more on the brighter side. I want it to be a little bit more, let me get the yellow in there I want.
Now, are you choosing the yellow from the sand because just like spread it out into a bigger area and like use that color more?
No, because I like those highlights. I like that color of the yellow hitting part of that. And to me, it would be a yellow to orange, like light transition through there. So adding that on immediately pops the barn, don't you think? Right?
Oh yeah, totally. It looks way better.
Then if we come in here and then if we hit parts of the barn, hold on, I was trying to keep this little segue line in there, but it looks like it's not going to happen. If I come in here and if I get a little bit just very soft, let me try to get this to work. I need to do it on another layer. Hitting right there on that edge, maybe a little bit coming in here. Hold on a minute. Then another new layer. Then let's go. You have that really nice sort of highlight feel, that color in there. It's great. And then I'm just wondering 1 second here, if we just come across here and just go like, you know, and we get some little, looks like little pieces of wood or highlights on there, you know?
Yeah, I was thinking of maybe using that rake tool that you were talking about earlier too for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if I do that, and I'm still tempted, one last thing, I'm still tempted to sort of, hold on, I might regret this. Let me try it. Can't see my hand.
Phil, I feel like I've taken so many of your classes now that like when I see houses that are like taller than usual, I'm like, oh, Phil will draw that.
You think? Right? No, I know. Hold on. I lost all I was trying to do was make the house a little bit more defined. Because that plane came out too cool. You know?
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. I think I just want to draw vehicles is my problem.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, right?
No, not at all.
There. Okay, now you get a window on there too. Hold on a minute. All right, one last thing, Eric. We need a chimney, dude.
Oh shoot, I forgot the chimney. It was in my line, right?
If you put a chimney on here,
Then I can put smoke.
yes, you could. And hold on a minute.
Hell yeah.
He's like, I can put smoke. Like he's discovered the cure to cancer. I have smoke.
I think it'd be more akin to discovering fire.
Right. I just did the chimney real quick. I'm just trying to show you that the shape of the chimney with the highlight on it with the rest of the house now is going to start to compete better with the reed that you already had up here. Hold on, I want to try one of the really textured, like drag across, and then I want to fade it in. Oops.
Just gonna screenshot that and turn it in.
That's actually not too bad. Let me go to erase then, so I did it on a separate layer. Oops. Erase very lightly, like 10%. I'm going to fade that in there. Get a little bit of that texture up above, a little bit of that on that corner, and then a little bit of that faded in there. And then the one last thing I might do is come back in here, take the straight line. Actually, forget the straight lines. Go back to brush. We'll hand paint it in. We'll do this guy right here. And we'll come along. Let me put another layer so I can move it where I want it to be. 100%. Too bright, too orange. I want it a little bit more like this. And then let's get it sort of like that. And then we move, oops. And then we take this guy, come on, move. There. Transform. Like it's just a little bit of reflective light on the end.
Yeah, it looks so much better.
So, and that's here, I'm going to dull it down. It's a little too bright and dull it down with my eraser, just 10%, go over it just a teeny bit. And it should be a little bit more orange. I don't know why it came out a little bit more white. Okay, so let's look at the difference of what we did. So a little bit larger. See, the difference is that the house just didn't have as much attention and there's no highlights around it. So the boat, the plane's taking everything. Now the house is getting hit. We can see the little wood lines. We can see the chimney. The little windows are popping out, highlights around it. Now the house is competing either at the same level or starting to beat the plane. Right?
Now, once you add some smoke, I think it would take it to the next level.
Yeah, smoke. Well, if you do smoke, what I would do then is this. Hold on a minute. Give me 1 second. Oh, that was horrible. Let me do that again. If you do the smoke, I would take your tree line, this wonderful tree line that you have here, okay? Hold on, I'll show you the method of the madness here and what I'm trying to do and why. I want to bring that tree line down a little bit more like that. Okay, hold on. Sorry, guys. I know our class is wrapping up here. I apologize. We just have gone a little bit late. Hold on a minute. And then, nope. So hold on. I changed the size of the house. We need to get that in there. So the reason why I did that is to create a little bit more of a shadow side on the back here, because then at the very, very end of having that house. If you made the tree line a little higher, you can see the smoke a little bit more. But what I was wanting to do, hold on, let me get some of this, is the very last thing I wanted to do was come in like right about here. Right about there. Let me hide, brush. That's a nice blue right there. And then hide that and come in really lightly. And I wanted to put a little bit of a bluish tint behind the warm right there. Do you see that?
Yeah.
To help pop the house a little bit more. Then I'm going to deselect and I'm going to lightly blend that blue into the what's around that hillside like that. That would be the shadow side of the hillside. So this area here should become more of the warm side. And then all of this blue back here should become the cool side of that hill. Now your eye is not going to go to that plane. Because why?
You're right.
Because your biggest area, not only of shape and contrast, but of color, is warm against cool right here on the house, and the plane doesn't have that. Make sense?
Yeah, that's way more successful. Yeah, I like that a lot better.
So look at the difference. We raised it a little bit. We made the shadow area behind the house a little bit cooler so it competes against that red. You then have the yellow highlights in the back here. And look, we could even still come in here. I can take that cool color. I can even pencil a little bit of that in up on the top of these trees right here and bring it a little bit more back there. And that actually really pops the house quite nicely and makes that your core focal point now. Okay.
Yeah, I love that. That's way better.
Yeah, isn't it cool? It came out really good, Eric. So you get a screen grab of that?
Oh yeah, I got the screenshot.
Okay, excellent, cool. All right.
I have my alternate take on the composition in the picture on the left there.
Yeah. All this is really great in the foreground. And by the way, I might even recommend to put a little bit more of these purple dots up in here. Because I like that warm sort of feel tied in with these. It just looks really nice. It came out really good. Okay.
Okay, I'll add some more.
And then one last thing, what I did here with this little yellow and orange here, you could probably do a little bit back here and a little bit maybe back here on this side. So we keep locked into that area and it keeps us away from the plane.
Okay, yeah, just add some more detail like around heaven just to keep the focus there.
Exactly. Okay.
Gotcha.
All right, good stuff, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, my pleasure. Okay.
Excuse me. Can you go over the next assignment because I have to leave?
I know, I'm sorry. I just realized what time it is. So I apologize that, and I haven't had a chance to, so really quick, Haley, we've already seen yours. Can I talk about it at next class and go over it with you?
Okay.
Is that okay? I'm sorry, or if you want to hold on, I'll cover it really quick. I think it looks really great in here. I just want to give you a couple. So look, here's the next assignment, guys, and I'm sorry, we just ran out of time. This is just what happens when we're having fun. So hold on, what's today's, let me adjust this real quick. What's today's date? 13th, right? April 13th, it should have gone. And it should have been, it was supposed to publish at 6 a.m. this morning. It didn't. Okay, confirm. All right, so let me real quickly here. So this is what I want you guys to do. This is our next assignment. It is basically, it's a character in a forest, okay? We can have a character with a robot, okay, lost inside a forest. And so we could have them discovering each other. It could be just the boy if you want. So I put up some reference up here. And then I put up some really great forest examples for you, okay, to guide you through. So use your imagination. I'm sorry I didn't have more time to present this or go over it with you, but if you read part of this outline, basically what I wanted for this assignment, we're going to be staging a character or characters inside of a jungle environment, okay? It could be, if you choose two characters, they should be totally opposite from each other in terms of their size relationships. So if you decide to do like a little child discovering a robot, you would have the little child with like his backpack on and boom, here's this big giant robot sort of covered by foresty material. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe no child and dragons. Or maybe it's, we want opposites. We want something mechanical and something alive, okay? So, or maybe it's the robot's there and the boy's reading him a story and he has a book open and he's trying to educate the robot and tell him a story. that could be another option, okay? Or maybe there's no robot and it's a little girl walking through the forest and she has a map trying to find treasure and she's lost in sort of this forest environment. That way we could focus on creating the forest, no necromancers. The forest will have depth in it. It'll have atmospheric perspective. It'll give us a chance to work on some organics. It could be a stylized piece as well. Okay, definitely we'll need to have foreground, midground, background, and sky. And what's great about forests is this. I did put some reference up for you. Okay, if you want to have a child with a pet, I would be fine with that as long as the pet and the child are totally different size relationships. Okay, I also put some robots up here that are pretty great reference. But what's really cool, and I'm sorry to rush, is when you look at some of this reference that I put up for you, it's how we build up a forest with local values and colors, and then we can add really cool light sources, streaking in from the side, hitting the rocks. And remember, similar to the piece we just did, you have organic leaves, plants, you have trees, you have rocks, you have lakes, you have all this good stuff on how to put something together. So this is a very common theme that's used, having to paint organics, and you can have everything from old wrecked looking trees with little lights in them to, you know, here's a really cool one of a guy like a soldier with his robot coming through a forest. To me, there's highlights missing in part of that piece, but it's a really nice piece in there. So this is what we're sort of going for, but we definitely want to have 3 separate layers. We want to have foreground, midground, and background. I want to make sure we build them that way because a lot of you guys were getting a little confused on the separation of foreground, midground, and background. And I want to go back and have those sort of locked in like that. Okay, so I grabbed some reference here. I'll gather some more reference and give it to you guys a little bit later. Okay, but this is just a basic of what I came up. So you could have a couple kids going through an expedition together like this. There's kids dressed as pirates going through a wonderful forest. It could have that narrative feel to it. Okay, if you decide to have, let's say you want to have 2 characters in it, 2 kids. Have one kid be a skinny kid, one kid be a large rounded kid. That way their shape variations are looking a little bit different from each other. So I'm giving you free reign where you could, now, actually I just changed my mind on something because I know Haley loves dragons. If you decided you wanted to do a dragon with a small child, I would be totally fine with that if it makes sense. The reason why I usually say not to do the dragon is dragons are very detailed and they can look, if you don't do the dragon right, it makes the whole piece fall apart. The great thing about doing a robot is robots are mechanical. They're easy to paint. Just think of them as metal being affected by the local environment. That could be a really great approach. Okay. So I didn't get to thumbnail for any of you today. I would like to thumbnail and come up with some ideas at next class. So at our next class, I'd like to look at your ideas and thumbnails, and then we could just talk together and brainstorm and come up with some do's and don'ts. Does that sound cool?
Yeah.
All right. Everything's on the blog for you. Dive into it, have fun, and I'll put a folder up with a new project folder. And I'm sorry if I didn't get, I think the last person I had to get to here was Haley. Okay, because we already looked at Rivers, and I'm going to talk about Haley's right now. Okay, cool. Thank you guys. You're free to go.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, thank you guys. And I'm sorry we ran late. It wasn't my intent to do that. It's just what happens when I start diving in there and painting a little bit. It really ends up being a lot of fun. So thank you guys. Everyone did really fantastic work. Keep up the great work. Okay. All right. Haley, you guys are free to take off, by the way. I already know who is here. I'll mark the roll as I go through it in a minute here. Dave, give me 1 second. I'll be with you. I just need to finish this. Haley, is this a little bit richer on my screen than your screen? Or a little bit duller, I mean?
Wait, what do you mean?
Is it a little bit duller on my screen? Like, did we lose saturation?
Maybe a little bit, but it looks close to the same.
Because if I go like this, if I darken it a little bit, that's what I want to see, where I want to see the darker values of the trees, bringing the trees in the foreground, and then the rest of this image dropping here in the back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if it looks like this, like it does on my screen, then it's awesome. If it looks more like this, I would say to come back in and darken a little bit of the foreground so we get the house to pop a little bit more in there. Okay?
Yeah, it's like the darker version.
Okay, good. So if it is that darker version here, that works quite well because the darks unite here in the foreground and then allows us to focus on the house a little bit back here. Okay, which is quite wonderful. And I am just one other thing. I am just a little curious if I were to take the lasso and if I selected a little bit back here on that side, if I came back here and took a little bit of this and that, if I made that a little bit lighter, see what it does to the house?
Yeah.
So that would be my final adjustment on there, is if we lighten down the values just a little bit of, because those trees were starting to get a little rich. If we lighten that down just a little bit, it makes the house and the little Volkswagen van pop immediately.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's all I would do. Just lighten that a little bit, darken, keep the area in the foreground dark, and I think you got a beautiful piece here. Looks fantastic.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Good work.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Let me close that one. We already did that one. And let me see if there's, yep, that was all the work that was submitted. So we got everything done. Okay, cool. All right. I'm going to go ahead. Did anyone else have any questions, or is everyone okay? There's some people on here still. Sonia, are you here? Okay, let me stop the recorder.